Hello, everyone, and welcome to the OSCAL-Compass community meeting. Today is September 10th. Go ahead and share my screen and read off our intro script. Just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded and will be shared publicly on our YouTube channel to promote transparency and accountability. Your participation in these meetings is an agreement to abide by the OSCAL-Compass Code of Conduct, which can be found in the community repository. And I'll scroll up and I just ask that everybody ask their name or add their name to the attendee list for the 10th and add any topics that you would like to discuss today. I'd also like to give any new folks an opportunity to introduce themselves and just share their interest in OSCAL-Compass if you are comfortable.
I'm Richard Stewart. I work Hill Air Force Base, 09 Software Engineering Group, and we're on a team called Ski Camp. So we're just exploring different capabilities, interested in kind of learning how to implement OSCAL things across our security interactions and controls and all that kind of stuff, like how to document using OSCAL. So OSCAL-Compass and its capabilities are part of it's what we're looking at and exploring. So.
Excellent. Thank you and welcome, Richard. And I just wanted to point out that if you're looking to discuss some more detail async, we have a Slack channel where you can ask questions, or you could ask questions here. I just if you think of something after the meeting, we do answer in Slack. All right, I think we could get started with topics. Lou, I believe the first topic listed here is yours.
Right, so I'm trying to earn our project an open SSL badge. This was to get started on this was a requirement of getting onboarded by CNCF. So we started that, and I'm going through the list of items that need to be done, and this is one of them. There's an open SSF CVE response time requirement, and I just cut and paste what they want here. It says the project's initial response time for any vulnerability report received in the last 6 months must be less than or equal to 14 days. I don't know that we have any vulnerability reports. I think maybe Alejandro could help me out here. Did we have a CVE recently that was addressed, or one or two that have been fixed? Or
well, yeah, actually, there have been certain vulnerabilities fixed, but these vulnerabilities are related with external dependencies, not related with the actual project.
Okay. So then the answer here is that there are no vulnerabilities that we have had reported against us in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So that's what I was looking for.
Great.
Thank you. So I think I can move forward with the answer, and I think this topic is closed. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Move to some quick community updates. I wanted to share this update in our governance that's proposed. Just for everyone's awareness, if you want to take a look, give some feedback, we'd appreciate it. The goal here is to remove the triager role and to add the reviewer role, which just gives the reviewer a bit more rights on the repository and a bit more ownership on the code itself. So I wanted to just share this with the group. if you have feedback now, that's great, or we can move on to the next one and we could do feedback async. All right, I can move on to the next one. And just a quick, I wanted to let the folks know that there's an issue here to move to CNCF Zoom and their YouTube account, just as we complete the CNCF onboarding. So I don't believe, and anyone like Lou or Alejandro, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe we've made strides towards achieving this. But I just wanted to let everyone know that this has been submitted and would be something that we'll be working toward.
I have a question here again. When you say hosted YouTube account, you're referring to the CNCF compliance working group meeting, right? Or just to move these meetings that we are having to their account?
So I'm talking about just moving to the CNCF Zoom account. And as far as the YouTube account goes, I think I may need some additional clarification from the folks at CNCF on requirements there. There is some documentation that says YouTube videos for CNCF projects need to be under the CNCF account.
Right.
Okay. So just the logistics of how we move the meeting recordings there. I don't think we have any other YouTube videos that we would need to move.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's it for me.
All right. Thank you. I think that's it for community updates. I think we can move on when we get back here. So there is a proposal that's on the table to talk about, but I did want to get feedback from the group on whether you would like to look at the pull requests first and then save the proposal for last.
Yeah, we can go with the pull request first. Yeah.
Right.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Ryan, if you wanted to kind of kick us off here. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not even sharing the right. Share the right one. There we go.
Yeah, so obviously this pull request is not ready to merge, but it is what I added. Back up a step. I was using Trestle Author Jinja to fill in an existing SSP template that we have at GSA, and so the Trestle Author command mostly did everything I needed it to do, except there are various parts where, like, to pull the correct data out of the SSP, you need to write a couple lines of Python to, like, get the party UUID out of the responsible parties in the system characteristics and link it back to the metadata.parties entry that it actually refers to. So I couldn't figure out a good way to do that with what is available to the Jinja template engine by default. So I'm looking for feedback on this approach of adding a new entry to the lookup table that has a new SSP interface class, and then just implement a couple of methods there for safe retrieval of highly nested data, or getting the diagram href. It hopefully is fairly self-explanatory if you read through the PR. But yeah, looking for info on whether this works, and I just need to clean it up and add tests, and the project would be happy to merge it, or if this stuff already exists in a different way and I just didn't know about it, or what.
So just to understand, Ryan, so you are creating a new SSP interface similar to what we have. I believe currently there is a control interface available, right? You are trying to create an SSP interface to pull out the right set of information that you require to use in your Ginger template, correct?
Yes, that is correct. And like
Okay.
a lot of this stuff, it would, there's already like the SSP model itself is available in the lookup table. And so like one way that maybe this makes sense would be if the SSP model itself had these methods or methods similar to them. But since it's, an auto-generated class, I figure that might be difficult to do. But I'm also very much a novice Python programmer, so maybe there is a good way to do that. If this were a Ruby project, I would have a lot more opinions on the correct way to do this.
Jen, I believe this also ties into the proposal that we have, right, around the SDK interface, correct?
I think it does, which is why I think it's good that we reviewed the PR first. And then maybe, Ryan, you might be interested in a proposal that we're going to talk about in a few minutes that where this SSP interface could be helpful.
Okay.
Any more feedback here for Ryan, or should we move forward and then look
I
at the
just have one small suggestion, and that is if Chris Butler is not on the reviewers list, I would add him because he might have some insight into what's the right thing to do here. Or he is good. Okay. That's it.
All right. It seems I've added the proposal twice to the topics. Okay. All right. I think we could just kick discussion off about the proposal. If I could, I'll give a little bit of background on the intent here and on what I'm proposing. So I am a user of the Compliance Trestle CLI as well as the SDK. And I believe that splitting the SDK from the CLI would help us define some clear boundaries between what is supported as the SDK and what is supported as the CLI and what code is supporting the CLI. And in this proposal, I kind of the implementation on how to do that that I'm proposing is to split the SDK into a separate Python package and possibly a separate repository to allow it to be versioned separately from the CLI and then possibly have a different release schedule. So I just kind of want to start it off there and see where the discussion goes.
Maybe Jen, you can bring up that diagram, right? That shows the separation. That would make it clear what we're talking here.
Yeah, right here. And I do want to include that in the proposal, what actually gets included in the SDK, I think that's still undefined. I did have some initial ideas on what should be in the SDK, but I think that it could use some feedback. I think the first thing to maybe agree on is, should we do the split before we continue on figuring out what should be in the SDK?
What do you mean by do the split?
Like, should we split them up? Should we split up the SDK and the CLI, essentially manage them separately?
I want to vote in favor of doing that split. I don't think it's all that related to the PR that I opened previously, but since opening that PR, I've been working on a plugin and have run into situations where I think the code that I wanted to do, an existing part of Trestle already does a similar thing, but I couldn't build on that because it was done like in the middle of a CLI method as opposed to encapsulated in where I think it would probably be in the SDK if there was a more a split that was a little bit more rigorous. And so I think it would help with plugin development and potentially, yeah, if we can create adapters for other languages also.
Thanks for bringing up other languages, Ryan, because that's also part of this as well. And I'll give credit. Yana created this awesome graphic, but we also have some a Go project, compliance to policy, that has to re-implement pieces of the OSCAL data types, and a Go offering might be helpful here as well.
So I'm not sure that see the Trestle current, even when we split the project, if we move with that idea, right, it would still be Python, right? And if we have to create a Go project, is it just a wrapper on top of Python, or it will be a completely new replica of what we are doing in as Python SDK? From Python we can go to Go directly, because we have the schemas, we are converting them to Python classes, and then we are writing an SDK on top of it, right? So can Go make use of those Python, or it has to be done, the same process has to be done, that is, we have to take the schemas, convert it to Go classes, and then write Go SDK on top of it?
Yeah, I think that's the initial phase. So that's the easier way to implement from the perspective of implementation cost.
So which way you're saying, completely separate ones, or?
No, so just wrapping Python and create and also creating a schema class for Go about the OSCAL, and but the essential functions or utility functions are just a wrapper. So in that case, we have to, if we use Trestle SDK in Go, we firstly install the Trestle and Python in the environment, and then Go program can use the Trestle SDK in Go version, Go library. So most of the functions are just a wrapper of the Python functions. So internally, that Go equivalent functions invokes the Python Trestle SDK. So it's like a binding approach.
So you're saying from Go program I can call a Python function? Is
yeah,
that okay?
Yeah, but it's up to the how call, directly called, or maybe via APIs if Python SDK provides.
And how strong is this requirement for having a Go binding? Is there a strong requirement or use case for that?
Not for now. Not for now. But in future, currently there is no plugins written in Go for C2P. So, but in future, we are considering to support the flexibilities of the language to implement plugins, C2P plugins. So, in that, if such case happens, this proposal would be helpful.
Yeah, Manjari, you.
Yes. So I think taking a look at the long-term view for compliance Trestle, because if we plan to support other languages and create an SDK for other languages, other than Python, like Go, it makes sense to split the compliance Trestle core, the CLI, the core, and the SDK, so that we can release SDK for Go as well. And I see that as a long term possibility, because now Compliance Trestle is a CNCF project, and many of the other CNCF projects, including Kubernetes, are Go based. So I see it as a likely enhancement for Compliance Trestle. And also, right now, since we only published a Python SDK, of course, we do publish a CLI, but the SDK is only Python. So projects which are written in Go cannot leverage Compliance Trestle fully. So I think that's a natural extension to release SDKs in Python as well as Go. You can see it as a common pattern for other open sources as well.
So I believe the first thing to do here, and people can comment, is at least before splitting the project, right? Let's first have an SDK or API layer for the core Trestle, right? That would be used by the upper CLI layer. Only that API would be used to manipulate the objects. And once we have that stable, right, probably then it would be easy to then split that into two separate projects where we separate out the SDK and the CLI, because before we do that, these two pieces are very tightly coupled. Currently, the CLI portion may be using some of the APIs that are available, like control interface and all, and it may directly be using those Python classes for catalog and profile and whatever all the OSCAL objects, right? Maybe directly using that classes, right? So at least what I think here is, let's have the API ready and implemented, and CLI updated to make use of that API only, so that there is a clean separation or interface between the two pieces. And once that gets fixed, then probably it would be just easy to split it into two pieces then, because we know that the dependencies are taken care of between the two pieces. Any thoughts, comments here?
That sounds good to me as and something I could add to the implementation details of the proposal. If you could add it as a comment, or even feel free to just add it as a suggestion, I'd gladly add that.
Sure. Because we'll also have to keep in mind, right, how much effort it would take to really split these two, right? And I believe it may be a significant effort. So it may be a better idea to slowly come up with a well-defined API, clean interface, which all the other portions of the Trestle, that is CLI and tasks and transformers, are using, right? And once we are sure that the above pieces, right, the Trestle pieces are solely using the API layer and not any internal models and functions that are available, and then it would be easier to make that split. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only comment I wanted to make is that I think it's valuable to make the calculation of the effort, because I do agree with the proposal that Manjiri was saying, right, about the separation of things. It could um, give us in the long term a lot of a lot of usage from different use cases and stuff, but I think we need to put this down into how much effort we'll need from development side and going on. Thanks. Yeah.
And just to add, Ryan, where I think your PR might tie in is once we get to this point, should something like the SSP interface be added to the API layer versus something supporting the Jinja CLI? So it might be a consideration there. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be good as long as I couldn't figure out any way to like really cleanly pass Jinja other Python. So like you can pass in a lookup table, but that is only, as far as I can tell, only for static data, not for new helpers. So if we had this, an SSP interface in an API layer, like how does that get into the template?
Yeah, Yana, you had something to say?
Okay. So, just one curiosity. So, if I remember correctly, Trestle requires opinionated project structures. For each part requires such opinionated structures. Does the core Trestle still require that structure? Or that structure is required for the CLI or task transformer.
That's the CLI and tasks and transformers. The core Trestle is just the OSCAL model converted to Python classes, and then there are some utility functions over there and some control interface and all to navigate that, right? So yeah, that part is not opinionated. That is just pure
Okay.
OSCAL. Yeah.
So then, if we split the Trestle these two parts, and we can use core Trestle core in sessionless, stateless program.
Yes. It will not have any. It should not have any dependency on the Trestle repository or directory structure. That will have to ensure that. Yes.
Yeah. So in that case, creating a wrapper or binding is more easier.
Yes, exactly, because it's just a stateless thing. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right, I think we've hit time here. Thank you everyone for joining. If you have any questions or anything you want to discuss after the meeting, please send us a message in Slack.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.